Welcome to another episode of First Down by CoachTools. Today I'm here with Coach Peter Noonan. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
Good to have, man. Thanks for inviting me, Justin.
Coach Noonan, he is the outside linebackers, head powerlifting, and also the head strength and conditioning coach at Hendrickson High School, which is outside of Austin, Texas. So to kick things off, Coach, can you just share with the audience a little bit about yourself and how you've ultimately gotten into your current role?
Sure. Man, this is I just wrapped up my 15th season as a football coach, or 15th season on the sidelines. Um, I grew up in Houston, Texas, played high school football at Bel Air High School in the early 2000s. So if anybody knows anything about Houston area high school football, and particularly that school, was predominantly known as a baseball school. Well, you had some really good baseball players go through there. You had a really legendary head baseball coach run that program. From there, went away to college, went to Florida State. My aunt lived out there, so she would send us stuff around Christmas time or whatever, and it was always FSU stuff. Just love watching them on TV. That was my dream school, and thankfully, I was able to go out there and for the best years of my life. Came back to Houston. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought about, trying to become a sports agent, trying to be the next Drew Rosenhaus. And I was like, oh, let me try law school. And I didn't get in. I didn't do well in the LSAT. So I took a job at a local newspaper doing outside sales, and then I went up to my old high school, and excuse me, there was still a coach on staff that coached me, and I was like, hey man, do you think there's anything that y'all could do for me? Is there any kind of job? I don't know what I want to do. I just want to be around the game. And he was like, all right, let me talk to the head coach. So the head coach at the time, Trey Herman, he's like, let me see what I can do. Calls me back. We can give you like a video coordinator position. You're going to be in charge of recording practice film, recording game film, uploading it, putting it in the right databases. And then, the trade film and highlight stuff, that's all going to fall under you. And this was before Huddle is what it is today. So this was under DSV, burning DVDs, using mini DVs, even before using SD cards. So, I feel like I cut my teeth a lot, similar to some old school coaches. Now the mini, the little SD cards, the flash memory, everything's instantaneously uploaded. It's different problem sets, but it's nothing like running out of tapes and having to find stuff to tape over and whatnot. But anyway, so I started my career at Bel Air High School as a coach after playing there for 4 years, and it was awesome. It was a really great learning experience. Got to be around some really knowledgeable coaches, some amazing kids. Unfortunately, it was a short-lived deal. It was 3 years there, and for whatever reason, things didn't quite work out. And I was young. I didn't know, how to manage what you needed to do to get the right teaching certifications to get a job. And so then, I reached out on the Texas High School Coaches Association job board, and got contacted by Todd John at Crandall High School, which is southeast of Dallas. At the time, it was a 3A school. They're a lot bigger now, but asked me to come out there, be the head boys soccer coach and freshman football coach, and I said sure. When I was at Bel Air, I coached corners for one spring, and then so my first year there, this is 2009. I don't really coach a position. I'm just doing video and I'm substitute teaching. That following spring, so spring of 2010, I'm coaching corners for the spring, and then fall of 2010, fall of 2011, I'm coaching inside linebackers. So I coached those guys for 2 years, and then in the fall of 2012, now I'm at Crandall High School. I'm freshman offensive line, and just learning. I was still very raw as far as a coach goes, and my knowledge of the game. And then the next season, I'm coaching defensive line at Crandall, and then things change, and I'm going to move over to community high school. Um, Still coaching defensive line there. I became the co-defensive coordinator my second year there, and then from there I left and went to West Mesquite High School, where I was the assistant defensive line, and then I was the head defensive line. So I was there for two seasons. And then a buddy that I worked with that was the co-defensive coordinator at Community reached out to me. He had gotten a head job down in Kingsville, Texas, south of Corpus, and he said, hey, you want to come be my defensive coordinator, and you can be the district, quote unquote, district strength conditioning coach. And I was like, sure, sounds good. So I go down there, and 2 years down there as a defensive coordinator, and head strength conditioning coach for everybody, and I learned a lot about myself, a lot about coaching coaches. That's one of the things that, as you grow in the ranks, it's not always about coaching the players, right, in the X's and O's. Now you go start coaching people, coaching grown men, and grown adult women that may not want to be coached anymore the way you coach a kid, right? You got to approach them differently, per se, depending on what you're trying to coach them as. And then from there, my wife and I were like, well, we know we're leaving Kingsville. We don't really know where to go. Her brother has always lived in the Austin area since I'd known her. And so we said, oh, we'll give it a shot, see if there's anything out there. So reached out to Coach Chip Killian at the time. He was the head coach at Hendrickson, and said, hey, this is what you got posted. These are my teaching certifications. If you got something, I'd be interested in coming out and interviewing. He hit me back, and we interviewed, and I think I was actually the last in-person interview before the shutdowns in March of 2020. So I interviewed in February, or late February, early March. I was in-person interview, and then about a couple weeks later, it was the spring break we never came back from. We took a rent house, basically sight unseen. At the time, the offensive coordinator's wife she still does real estate on the side, and so she's our realtor, and she came to the house and put us on FaceTime, and we're like, oh, looks good. So we're still here in the same house, 3.5 years later, and I've been at Hendrickson now, going on this is my fourth football season has concluded. So this is actually the first time in my career where I have been with the same graduating class, from the time that they were freshmen all the way to their senior year. And it's just been really awesome to watch them grow and mature and improve, and just some really amazing young men that I'm really proud of. And, just a lot of growth and maturity in myself. Most of my career I've spent as the defensive line coach. When I was at Santa Gertrudis in Kingsville as the defense coordinator, I coached linebackers. I coached all of it, right? It was all under me as the defensive coordinator, but I mainly coached the linebackers, and kind of the safeties. And then now at Hendrickson, this was my first year to not be defensive line coach in a while, and so I was coaching outside linebackers, which was a nice little change up in the sense of just trying to grow myself, and grow my knowledge of the game, the defensive schemes that we ran, and other schemes, and um, so it was a fun change up. Some really awesome kids, and just really really good opportunity that I liked.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot to unravel in that. So the one the one really cool thing that I heard you talk about was as you start to mature in your career, you not only learn how to coach players, but you learn how to coach adults and other people that are your peers. So can you talk about that and how you've improved that own skill set? Because I'm only a couple years out of college and I'm still developing a lot of these skills. So would love to hear your perspective on that.
The biggest deal is whether they're adults or they're kids, right? They have life problems, life issues. Sometimes as a teenage kid, the life issues are way different than the adult issues, and sometimes they're very similar. Struggles at home, uh, going through divorce, whether as a child or as an adult, um, you know, money issues, other stressors. So just trying to find a way to understand where people are at. I think just like when dealing with young people, as you deal with older people, adults, there are certain things that you come to expect, whether it's from a work ethic standpoint or it's from an execution standpoint. And I think sometimes we as coaches, as we advance in our years, we expect other people, kids or adults, to figure it out. Like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be done. And we don't always do a good job showing and explaining and being explicit in detail as to what should be done. So for me, that's definitely one of those things, particularly as the head strength and conditioning coach. I have to do a better job of in terms of explaining things and being explicit in my standards, my expectations. But at the same time, I want to find ways to empower the coaches on my staff because everybody has their whether the preconceived notions about the weight room or about how to get faster, about what's good conditioning, what's unnecessary conditioning. And I don't want to necessarily be automatically dismissive because it doesn't align with my viewpoints. It doesn't confirm my biases or my perspectives. I want to grow and find ways to highlight the potential strengths that those people have. So this past summer, I attended a coaches conference, and I really learned what it looked like to delegate from a strength and conditioning standpoint to the staff. Like, how do you put people in charge of more specific things and grow everybody, whether it's the kids and or the coaches. And I was able to ask other coaches, and this was a collegiate model, so it looked a little different than what we do, but there are still similarities. So the same way that you may delegate that a head coach may delegate to his football staff, uh, you know, like for us, we drive the buses, so somebody's in charge of inputting all the trips for the freshman teams and the JV teams and the varsity teams, right? If somebody's in charge of the food orders, so you have all these other little tasks that sure one guy could do it, but it's not necessary, in the sense of one, it's a lot for one person to take on, and two, if you're the head football coach, your job, in my opinion, is you got to grow the coordinators to become eventual head coaches. And if you're the coordinators, then you got to grow your assistants to eventually be coordinators, whether they necessarily want to or not. I think if you take that progression, you're always trying to push that growth mindset. But if you just, like I was like, oh, I just want to be an assistant coach. Well, that's fine, but let's let's teach you some other skills. So, you know, our running backs coach is also the head baseball coach. So he needs to know how to handle budgetary things. He needs to know how to input bus trips. Our both of our offensive line coaches, excuse me, are also head second sport coaches. I'm a head second sport coach. Like there's all these little detail things that we need to learn. So for me, and it's about delegating and empowering those adults, and it's about having conversations too. Where I have to get better at, I think, is being a little more assertive and direct when things aren't going the way in which I envision them to. And at the end of the day, if I'm going to wear the hat and hold the title as head athletic performance, head strength conditioning, then how we perform on the field from that standpoint, not so much from the schematic standpoint, it falls on me. So it's my job to make sure that what we're doing from a conditioning standpoint, from a sprinting standpoint, from a lifting standpoint, is all being done and it's all moving in the same direction, the same as, right? It's my job as the outside linebackers coach to make sure that I fit from a run coverage standpoint to a pass coverage standpoint, and I fit with the guys to my front, behind, left, and right, and I understand and I've taught my guys how they fit into the puzzle of the whole defense and how we fit into the puzzle of the whole team. So it's just kind of those layers, like an onion, man. It was just, you can peel back all the layers, but eventually you're going to get to that core deal. And so to me, just trying to empower, enlighten, educate the people I'm in contact with, but at the same time, finding ways to learn from them and also just not be stuck in my ways just because, that's the way I've always done it, or that's the way that somebody else does it and it works for them. Coaching mentor of mine just said, the only thing you're an expert in is the kids that you coach every day, or the guys that you work with every day. Those are the things that consistently, right? The kids that you work with, I don't know those kids, but you know those kids. So you would know better how certain things are going to work, the same way I'm going to know better how certain things should work at my school.
Right. And I think you said it perfectly. Just knowing the situation and applying what you know about those kids to those situations, I think is key. And backing up a little bit too with what you're saying about being able to be accountable when it comes to that's your domain. Your job is to make sure that your kids are not only strong, but they're fast, but they're also conditioned properly. So I totally hear you there. Anything else that you think would be good to share with the audience about that?
Obviously, it's find out what guys and girls, if you work with girls, are strong at, right, and highlighting those strengths, but it's also challenging them a little bit. At the end of the day, I believe most people actually want to be challenged and pushed, whether they believe they do or they don't. I don't think very many people actually just want to be left alone and average. I think everybody wants to be great. Some people just it takes more external motivation and external pushing than internal. So, creating opportunities to get out of the comfort zone. That's another thing that I took away from that clinic was, yes, everybody could easily do the job of somebody else, but is that going to grow them if they're just always in a level of comfort? So I got to get out of my comfort zone and I got to be more assertive and more direct on things. If I got to do it, then chances are you got to do it, right? So the more willing people are to get out of their comfort zone and be comfortable being uncomfortable, I think more growth happens, whether that's from the kids or the adults. If
Yeah.
if we constantly stay stuck in our ways, we constantly say like, "Oh, we're always just going to do it this way," you're not going to be you're going to hit a ceiling. You may still be relatively successful, but I don't think you're going to be as successful as you could be. I mean, you look at a school like Alabama, right? And you look at Nick Saban, the offense that he the offense and defense that he ran all the way back when he took over in 2009, eight or nine when he took over, maybe even 2007. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
It doesn't look like it doesn't look exactly like it did then, like it does now, right? The quarterback position that he's used, the people there have evolved, the way he plays different people in the defensive front and secondary has evolved as the game has evolved. I think I saw somebody uh, put out a statistic or just kind of their general um, viewpoints, right? And they said like I think there's somebody that was around Alabama towards the end of Bear Bryant's career as a coach, and they alluded to him kind of looking already more like a statue on the sideline um, than really deep in being involved. Um, you know, Joe Paterno, Bobby Bowden, towards the latter years of their career, they were figureheads. And I was at Florida State, when Bobby was still there as the head football coach. But I was also there when Jimbo Fisher became the offense coordinator and then was named head coach in waiting. Like you kind of saw and knew like there does come a point in time where the game, I don't want to say passes you by, but the game in the capacity in which you're involved with it, that time comes to an end, whether that's a player, that's a coach, that's a broadcaster, that's a analyst, right? Father time is undefeated. So there comes a point in time where you have to adjust your role and make the change, or you then have these unhappy partings and unhappy endings. And it's definitely a lot harder as a player. There's a lot more guys that probably end their careers before they wanted to or not on the notes that they wanted to. We can't all write the perfect walk away into the sunset type of deal. But you look at Nick Saban and some would say he's done some of his best coaching in the last few years. But then at the same time, look at all his assistants that have gone on to be head football coaches, that have gone on to other places. Look at the guys that he's taken from Division II, from the FCS to now they are Power 5 FBS position coaches, coordinators. Like there's a whole lot of growth that happens. You look at the schools that have taken high school football coaches, particularly in the state of Texas, and have coached them up in the ranks as position coaches, as recruiting people, and then put them on the sidelines. And the success, you talk about like a Joey McGuire at Texas Tech or a Jeff Traylor at UTSA. Like these are guys that I remember watching them or potentially even being on the same field as them as an opposing coach, and they're coaching, and now here they are at the collegiate level, right? And then so the interactions are a little bit different. And I don't know either guy personally. I have interactions with Coach McGuire a little bit more, and I think they're both wonderful coaches, wonderful people. Clearly, they're doing great jobs. They have great staffs. Um, so those are those things. It's like if you get stuck in your ways, you don't take chances, you don't take some risks. You things are going to pass you up, pass you by, and that ceiling is going to be a lot closer to the floor than not.
Yeah. How do coaches know when they're at that point where maybe it's time to like change?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't know the exact answer because for me, if I look at my career, like if I just zoom out real quick, right, in 15 football seasons, part of the time my hand has been forced to change, right? Like somebody above me has either gotten fired or decided not to return as a head football coach. So then there's that trickle down effect, right? Like I've been told I'm not being brought back. I've decided that I'm not going to have that happen to me again. So I'm going to go seek out employment elsewhere. I have been told, hey, man, like, I really want you to stay put. You're doing a great job. Or, hey, this promotion is available. And you ask your mentors, do you do you think I'm ready? You ask yourself, am I ready? You know, as a person of faith, ultimately, I'm going to turn to God and ask for guidance through prayer. And I'm going to definitely consult my wife and help and have her input is ultimately kind of what really helps me. Um, she has a wonderful gift of discernment, and she's the first person to challenge me um, in a positive way. I may not like it all the time, but I have no doubt that she is, when she asks questions, it's simply to make sure that whatever's being done is being done morally right, ethically right, and it's what's in the best interest of us as a family and our future. And it's not just chasing titles and chasing, um, you know, fruitless rabbit holes. Um,
Right.
I think the other deal is, who's in your circle, um, and who can direct you. If you, I think too, if you get to a point where you just dread going to school or going you know, to work, whether it's with the people you work with, the kids you work with, I think that there is a point in time where you need to really say, am I doing everybody else right by being here? Um, and there are some people that I don't think they can have that conversation with themselves and be honest. I think there are some people that probably have a myopic view of themselves and think that everything that they do is right. Um, and maybe that's no fault of theirs, but at the same time, like, I think it's important that you do have people that can have real conversations with you and be direct with you and say, hey, stop doing that. Or, hey, this is not, you know, your time here has come to an end for whatever reason, or your time needs to be extended here for whatever reason. I hope that I never get to that point where I am just kind of showing up haphazardly. Um, and I know that sometimes as coaches get closer to a retirement age, things are different. And maybe they transition into different kind of roles. Um, but I'm a person, even when I was about to leave this place, I could never just mail it in. I care too much about doing what's right for these kids. Um, at the end of the day, I feel like I owe it to coaching. I owe it to football. I owe it to lifting, strength conditioning, because of who helped me to get into these avenues, and to know that they're still doing things and still doing things at a high level. To me, it would be a disservice to them, and it would be a disservice to the opportunities I've been blessed with. Um, so to me, it's like you gotta give it your all. Um, I we had a coach and excuse me, we had a coach on the staff of another school in our district. They went 4 rounds. Coach battled cancer the entire season. I mean, he would go and get treatments during the week. And then Friday night he's on the sideline, ripping and roaring, man. And he was the
Wow.
defensive coordinator. So you find stories like that, and there are other coaches that I know too that have battled cancer throughout the years, and some of them keep it a little more private than others. But you know, when you're healthy enough to give it your all, to me, you owe it to give it your all. When there's plenty of people that are fighting, battles and demons and external things that most of us don't even know about, but yet here they are. They're building relationships with kids, and they're building relationships with other coaches, all the while still trying to do their best and make things better than when they found it.
Yeah.
I think that's the other, what's at the end of the day, whenever my time is done, whether it's at Hendrickson or with that coaching in general, my greatest hope is that people can always say he left it better than he found it. Right. And I think if you strive to do that and you try to leave that kind of mark, I don't think that you can ever call yourself unsuccessful, because there's never going to be enough wins. Right.
Right.
There's only one winner at the end of the day that holds up the championship trophy. Um, and I think too many times coaches have got caught up in the rat race of winning and forgotten um, those are never going to add up to be enough. Um, and you're probably going to remember your losses more than your wins, especially those tough ones. Uh, that's I reflect back more on that probably than I do on our wins, just because I knew how close we were to turning some of those losses into victories.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe they pay off later on. So
Yeah. And that's, I 100% agree with that sentiment of just leaving the place that you're at better than what you found it like. And that applies to everything. And the coaches that I've had throughout high school and college that have taught me those types of values, those are things that as a young person, as a recent player, like I carry with me into my career. And, in our profession, in the coaching profession, you know, that's what I believe everybody should strive to do, is to, like you were saying, not like, yes, winning is important. And at the end of the day, it comes down to how many kids are you going to impact and have a positive influence on their life. And, it's great to hear coaches like yourself who have that mentality.
appreciate
So,
it, man. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. So, well, Coach, thank you very much for sharing today. Any last words you want to share with the audience before we hop off?
Uh, just anything that I can do to help, I'm always willing to help people. Like I said, I I owe it to those that have helped me get to where I'm at, and I always want to pay it forward the best that I can. So whether it's from a strength and conditioning standpoint, D-line play, outside linebacker play, um, I don't know a whole lot about the coverage stuff, but I'm happy to talk ball. Um, I hope that anything else that people find value in, I can help out if need be.
Yeah. Thank you very much, coach. And you've also been a great mentor for me coming out of college and, starting up my business. So thank you. Thank you for all that help too.
But everybody sign up and get CoachTools, man. It's great stuff, great product, great customer service. So, do yourself a favor and get on CoachTools.
Awesome, coach. Well, thank you again. And thank you everybody for watching.